Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2.
The Dose.
The Dose?
The
The
Dose.
Deuce?
The Deuce.
Part D.
Part D.
This is Cincinnati Style, Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati Style. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is our second episode of Cincinnati Style, where our takes are just like the chili, gonna give you the runs.
And you're only going to like it if you're from here.
Okay, that too. Yeah. Scott is here with me. I am Mike. Joe is behind the computer. Joe, how you feeling tonight, man?
What it do, baby?
Very good, based off that assessment.
By the way, my 3-year-old says that now because I was
Really?
saying it. Yes, I said it randomly because Joe had me
Your
like,
son's the best.
yeah, Joe had it creep into my psyche, and I said it randomly, and Jude was just like, "What it do, baby?" And I was like, "Go tell your mother that right now. This is the greatest."
Jude's awesome.
This is Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati Style, and Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati Style is brought to you by Minuteman Tickets. Look, everybody, football is back, and there's only one spot you should be heading to go to get your college football or NFL tickets, and that's Minuteman Tickets. We love Minuteman. They're Ohio guys just like us. They're sports fans, and they're not going to screw you over like other ticketing places. Not just football either. They got it all. Baseball, hockey, theater, rib cook-offs. It doesn't matter. Minuteman does it all. Hit them up, MinutemanTickets.com, or give them a call, 614-943-3000, and avoid all of the fees. Tell them you heard about them right here on Craft Brewed Sports, Cincinnati Style.
Booyah, nailed it.
Scott, we got a lot to talk about because we went in last week, kind of went hard on both UC and the Bengals. One of those ended up being true, and the other one not so much. So we got a lot to get into for these Cincinnati teams this week.
Yeah, and the Bengals, man, coming out just, I think it's premature and a little ridiculous in week one to say shocking the world, but shocking the NFL world.
Shocking at least
for sure.
Cincinnati.
They got the highest grade of any team, and they lost the game. But they had the highest grade on Pro Football Focus, just based on team play. And I thought that speaks volumes because, I mean, a 1-point loss, and it wasn't just us being, local and saying, wow, they did way better than we thought. They performed way better than anybody thought, and the numbers bear that out.
All right, let's get into it. We're not even going to waste any time. A lot to get to, so let's get into our Bengals coverage for this week. This week, the Bengals lose 21-20 to the Seahawks, but in a game that we thought they were going to get blown out. I think everybody,
Right.
and I mean, when the line was set at 9.5 in an NFL game, that's kind of disrespectful because that's essentially you're gonna get blown out.
Yeah, I mean, because they don't set the spreads and double digits very often in the NFL, so
Unless you're the Pats playing the Dolphins in Miami, that's the only time you're
yeah.
gonna see.
But no, I mean it really was the highest point spread that you could possibly think of when you're thinking, all right, they really want people to bet the Bengals because they feel like everybody's going to bet the Seahawks. So it's totally just to get some bets on the other side. And you know what? The Bengals came out and they did something that I don't. Now, I had the game on. It started at 4:00, and it was the same time as the Niners game. So I had one eye on each of them.
You were split screening it?
Yeah.
You in your fancy house, you had 2 TVs. Don't even lie.
No.
You had both big screens.
Nah,
playing
no.
One game on one game on the other.
No, the 49ers were on the laptop because, I got local TV for that Bengals game and
You
had to
feed
go
up?
had to go that Reddit free stream
That
for the
quote
Niners game.
unquote real link.
Yeah. That link for the Niners game was real fans watch free TV. But yeah, no, so it was one of those things where I was watching 2 games at the same time. But throughout the day, I was watching other games earlier before that, the 1:00 games. And it's week 1, and I feel like the last couple years, this has bared out more than it has ever before. So few regular players play any of these preseason games that the first week is so sloppy because it's a lot of the regulars getting back up to speed. And the Bengals-Seahawks game, to me, out of all the games that I paid any attention to and watched any amount of, was the least sloppy game of all of them. So that's saying a lot because both teams played a pretty clean game, and there were still, penalties on both sides that you're like, all right, they got to clean that up, but it's week 1.
Right, exactly.
So, if you're a Bengals fan, you're not looking at it as, well, they lost, but it was all these penalties that kept them down. It was, hey, they lost. It was by a point. Yeah, there are a few things they can clean up, and obviously, they had 8 penalties, and you'd like to have less. but it was by no means something embarrassing where you're just like, Jesus, man, here we go again, because it's just a sloppy football team.
So
they looked good.
There were flashes where I was like, oh no, what have we done? There was like they were burning some timeouts, and I'm like, oh my God, we got Marvin back. Like, we're using timeouts in the first quarter. What is happening? What are we doing? There were moments like that, but then there were these flashes where it was like, oh, this is a different team. The number one thing was going in at halftime. Marvin Lewis hands before the touchdown to end the half. Marvin Lewis would have sat down, knelt the ball. This is over. We're done. We're going into the half. It's close enough. Taylor comes out and calls that flea flicker, and it ends up going. Or the flea flicker was the first score, wasn't it?
No, the flea flicker was a play that I thought just extended one of the drives.
No, there was a flea flicker for a touch. It was the first touchdown. Was the flea flicker?
Okay, I was going to say. I was like, I remember the one that Well, I guess it did end up being the touchdown.
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
But I didn't realize how close to halftime that was.
Before half, they called a long pass, and Dalton ended up
33 yards for a touchdown.
And that's where I was like, this is a new day. DEY.
Well, just in general,
Hashtag new day.
Well, just in general, the fact that they did a flea flicker, that is not a play that you...
When was the last time you saw a Bengals team run a trick play? I don't remember it. I don't remember a
you
trick
don't
play.
see many NFL teams take that type of extreme risk, especially before halftime. Just in general, the fact that in his very first NFL head coaching game ever, Zach Taylor's like, you know what, we're going for the flea flicker right before the half because what do we got to lose? Like that showed.
Well, it was earlier
balls.
because that was the first touchdown. But he said he called it earlier in the game. And apparently it's like built in, and he said that Gio read the blitz differently, and he saw the blitz, so he decided to just keep it instead of doing the flea flicker.
Okay, so he called for it twice.
Yeah, that was the second call, and the second call ended up going for a touchdown, which is unreal.
No, I mean, that again, if you're any NFL coach of any tenure, that's a ballsy play because just the flea flicker in general. That's one of those plays that it's like it either works spectacularly or it fails spectacularly. Yeah. There's no in between. So the fact that, Zach Taylor went with such a risk twice in his first ever, head coaching game in the NFL, like that's what you want to know. And I said going into last week, there might not be a lot of wins at the end of the season, but what you want to see, if you're a Bengals fan, by the end of the year, you want to see wins along the way. And I thought they won more than Seattle won, even though the final score says that Seattle won the game. The Bengals took away more individual victories along the way than they did losses, and that's what you're looking for if you're a Bengals fan right now. Like, if there's a regime change, Zach Taylor's going to have to get his own guys in here, and he's got to figure out who's going to work, who's not, and there's some older guys that are just going to go out because, time is going to catch up. But, there were plays along the way that suggested he's the right guy for the job, and you've got to be excited if you're a Bengals fan.
One of those guys in particular, and it was somebody we brought up and kind of hammered a little bit last week, and that's Andy Dalton. We came in and said, get ready to kiss Dalton goodbye because he's not going to work under the system, that Zach Taylor wants to run. He's not going to be the guy that you count on in the future.
This wasn't even turn back the clock, Andy Dalton Bengals uniform. This was TCU.
This was
Andy Dalton.
Where has this Dalton been his entire career? He goes for
career
418
game
yards.
Career game.
But Joe pointed out before the show in our group chat, only 2 touchdowns, and that's something that this team needs to work on. Right. It was weird, too, because I think they only had, 3 trips to the red zone, too. It wasn't, they were never in striking distance.
In that 400 yards, there were a lot of big strike plays where it was a lot of yards. So when you're looking at that 400 yards, a lot of them came in chunk plays. And they came just outside of the red zone, so they ended up scoring on them, which you're not going to complain about. But, 400 yards is 400 yards.
Right.
But that's the thing, right? If they're scoring so far away, once you get down in the nitty-gritty, do they have the pieces right now?
Well, we don't.
No AJ
don't
Green
know.
yet.
And they don't, and they show.
Do they have that up threat in the corner or a run? With Mixon and all that kind of stuff now going to be out. What do they do now if they get close to the red zone?
Well, in the short term, I think that those questions are left unanswered because Mixon left early with the injury, and they didn't really get in the red zone, so you don't know what the red zone offense looks like. We don't have any real idea. But I guess you kind of take your chances because, again,
Well,
you're not going to snuff
hold up.
you're not going to lift your nose at 400 yards.
Hold up.
However,
they have one of the best red zone threats, and I'm not just saying this as a
AJ
Cincinnati
Green?
fan. Not AJ Green.
Tyler Eifert?
Tyler Eifert. That's the guy that you go to in the red zone. That's your dude.
Okay.
And as long as Eifert
Well-
can stay healthy, that's the guy that you got to go to in the red zone.
I said this on the WCPO Bengals podcast.
Name drop.
Yeah, I don't even want a name drop, but I'm just gonna say I said that one of the biggest stats to come out of this game when you're looking at the box score is that 2 people made it out of the game healthy: John Ross and Tyler Eifert, who have had trouble staying healthy. Both of their, in John Ross's case, short career, and Eifert his slightly longer career. Both of them made it out of this game healthy, and that's huge because John Ross had a huge game, and Eifert was very quiet, but he made the plays that came to him.
Right.
And again, they both left the building under their own power.
Well, and that's huge, especially with AJ being out. John Ross stepped up and became that guy. He was the guy in that receiving core, and that was my big question going into this game, and that's why I didn't think Andy Dalton was going to be able to do well. Without AJ Green in the lineup, and then with Mixon going down hurt, it was like, okay, you have no run support now,
And Tyler
your
Boyd.
number one, and your number one receiver is out. There is no way you're going to have
It
a
was
good game.
it was really just him and Tyler Boyd, and you thought there's absolutely no chance. But Ross stepped up big, and it was mentioned that it seemed like Ross had this confidence factor that for whatever reason, whether it was he was drafted so high and he got hurt, and that his rookie year he only had that one catch and he fumbled, whatever it was, he just never clicked and could get it right under Marvin Lewis, and it looked like, all right, he's going to be a bust. It's a lost cause, and whatever you get out of him is gravy. But he seemed like a different player in this game in that he dropped that one pass.
Yeah,
That would have been a
yeah.
surefire touchdown on what was it, like 3rd down or something like that, or 2nd down, and it was one of those moments where you're like, well, that's John Ross, and
Right.
every Bengals fan
There
thought,
he is.
yeah, there he is. But he came back on the very next play after that and caught the ball over the safety, who was in great position to knock that ball down, and by all counts should have knocked the ball down, ran it in for touchdown, totally redeemed himself, and again, went on to a 7-reception day, 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards. Maybe all it takes is John Ross going back to Washington to play football, because that's where he played collegiate ball, and that's just where he performs better, is the upper Northwest.
Well, I'm wondering how much of that is John Ross is being utilized differently under Zach Taylor than he was under Marvin, and then how much of it was, look, man, AJ's out, you got to step up. Like, you need to step up.
Well, I think it's twofold. I think it's AJ's out, you've got to step up, and it doesn't matter what's happened before. I am coming in with this complete blank slate for you.
Right.
I don't care what happened. I don't care how disappointed the fan base is, how disappointed anybody is in this building. I believe in you. You go out there and ball, and you can make mistakes and do what you do, and I won't care because this team needs you. And I think that
I'm ready to run through a wall for you right now, Scott.
Right.
I am pumped for
But I mean, I seriously think that, Marvin got down on him really early. I don't know that Marvin necessarily wanted to draft him. I feel like that might have been a pick that Marvin was against, and he just had to accept it because people higher than him decided that was going to be the pick. And he came out and was very judgmental, and Ross struggled, because he's a skinnier dude, a lighter guy, and it just sometimes we forget that it takes guys time in this league to develop. Not everybody comes in from day one is ready to hit the ground running, especially at receiver and quarterback and defensive line. And he just happens maybe to be one of those receivers that this is his 3rd year. Maybe it's going to click.
Right.
Like, can you
Right.
imagine what it'll be like if this John Ross is still the John Ross when AJ Green come back and they have Boyd, Green, and him?
Well,
They're not
that's-
going to be able to stop this
And
offense.
on top of that, you got Eifert as your tight end option.
Right.
Like, that is
Assuming he's out. And Mixon, who didn't play most of this game.
right. Mixon was hurt. So that's
This offense is legitimately dangerous
and
if
that's
all
what's
of those
so
guys play up to the potential and stay
encouraging
healthy.
watching this game. And I know I hate moral victories, and Joe even
Right.
teased me about it before.
Absolutely.
But
There are no moral
it
victories,
really
but-
is like watching this game and being like, okay, there are things that the team needs to work on. They were 0 for 3 in the red zone. It's completely unacceptable.
Right.
There was the missed field goal earlier in the game, which really comes back to haunt you when you lose by 1. Like, that's one that you're like, are you...
Well, and I actually think that the most critical play was, they go into halftime and they're up 17-14. They get the fumble from the Seahawks right at the start of the third quarter. They're driving, and it's like, okay, they're going to score here. Whether it's a field goal or whether they get a touchdown, and then the way things were going, the way that drive had gone, it looked like they probably get a touchdown. Well, then Dalton has the ball completely just slip out of his hands because it was raining, and it just unforced air, fumble. They turn it right back over. It went from... We've got this momentum, and we can put them on their heels too. All right, now they're back, and it's like, okay, it's just this 3-point game. To me, that was the biggest play of the game.
Yeah, even if you get a field goal out of that drive,
right? It changes the complexity of everything, and so that was the biggest play of the game. And you don't want the fumbles, but again, you chalk it up to the rain, and you can chalk it up to the fact that they're on the road. All of these things, it makes it so that when you look at it, a 1-point loss. I mean, that's the 49ers would have wished for some 1-point losses over the past few years going into Seattle. Seattle is not a place that you go into and expect to win. You just hope to keep it close and be in position in the fourth quarter to make a drive. The fact that the Bengals were in it all the way to the end, and we haven't even gotten to the controversial call at the end.
Well, that's I was gonna...
I would be very encouraged.
I was going to bring that up. So there's 3 things that I think they need to work on. Number 1 is that running game. It is never a good sign when your quarterback throws for 418 yards and you finish with 429 yards of offense. That is not a good sign at all.
But again, Mixon goes out. So I'm willing. If Mixon had played the whole game and they had those type of splits, it'd be a bigger concern. But Mixon goes out and you're like, well, Bernard did what he could, and they basically abandoned the run.
But I don't think it was really that much of an abandonment, because that first drive, I think the play selection was like 7 passing plays and no rushing plays. Like, they came out and Zach Taylor was like, I am going to beat you with Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is going to throw all over you, and that's what he did all game long.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Taylor is taking this new NFL approach of like, we're just going to air it out.
Well, right, and that's what I'm saying. Like,
you never see in Cincinnati. It's amazing.
Well, they never bothered to really establish the run, but once Mixon went out, they certainly weren't going to. It was just literally to mix it up, and we're just throwing it in.
And that is evident by their first down selection: 18 passing first downs, 1 rushing attempt on first down.
Right.
So they are going wide open with that.
To be fair, 15 years ago when we were growing up watching football, that would be absurd and it would be unthought of. In today's NFL, I mean, that's par for the course. Like, there are very few run first teams anymore in the NFL to where you're like, I mean, the best teams throw on first down anymore. So
right. So going back, so the rushing game is one thing that they need to improve upon
for sure. But I think as long as Mixon's healthy, they'll be fine.
Right. Number 2 is that red zone offense. They went 0 for 3 in the red zone. You need to convert when you're in there. When you're down, and to your point, great, get your scores when you're outside of the red zone. If you're 0 for 0 from the red zone and you win a game, I'm happy. I don't care.
Right. I mean, if you're scoring outside of the red zone, then who gives a crap what your numbers
exactly.
are?
But if you're in the red zone, you got to convert. So to go 0 for 3 is brutal. And then the other thing is the turnovers. And they had 3 asterisk fumbles during that game. And I say asterisk because that last one is not a fumble. That's such garbage. I'm not saying that would have changed the game.
No.
Because you got 10 seconds left. Dalton has maybe 2 plays left.
Well, here's my problem with that quote unquote fumble is that was literally born out of the replay that they went to. That was the play that we all didn't know existed that birthed Tom Brady's career. That was the tuck rule. I mean, his arm was going forward and the ball was coming out. And to me, once upon a time, that was a fumble. But the tuck rule said and dictated, and since that rule, everything has been gravitated around that. That was an incomplete pass.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that you can tell me that was a fumble, but yet the tuck rule back in, 2003 or whatever, that was a fumble. Like, there's no way.
And again, I'm not going to be one of those fans that says, if they would have just given that to us, Dalton had a chance.
Right.
He had a chance, and that's all I'm asking for in that situation is give him a shot.
That didn't decide the game, but it's irritating from a standpoint of the rules have changed so much, and that to me was the birth of the new rule changes, the tuck rule. That was the genesis of everything we see now in the NFL as far as rule changes. I know CTE came along and like changed things for a difference when it comes to quarterbacks, but to me, the tuck rule was the very first rule that brought about all of this craziness since then. And for you to tell me that, well, that play, that's a fumble, but back then it was, you know, an incomplete pass, that's the complete and utter BS.
Yeah,
like they
agreed.
Again, I don't think that the Bengals win the game because there was so much more that had to be done in between that play and the rest of the game. It just seemed like the referees went back, looked at the video, and they're like, there's no time left.
Can we
just
go
call
home?
it? Yeah,
Can we go home?
they were
I'm
like,
ready.
just
It's
call
raining.
it.
It's raining. I just want to get out
Like,
of here, man.
he's not going to complete this pass, right? Just call it a fumble and end the day. And so that's annoying.
DEY
though.
end the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I just had to
the-
make sure that that's how
the
it was.
DEY for
Yeah,
sure.
I wasn't 100% sure.
End their day. But yeah, I mean, it was crap, and you know, it is what it is. But if you're a Bengals fan, you feel great about what happened.
I am very excited about that game. It went totally different than I thought. I thought Zach Taylor's game plan of coming in and doing a lot of 3-step drops for Dalton, a lot of quick slants, a lot of screens, covered up the fact that offensive line was struggling, and I think that puts us in a good position moving forward as we get ready for the Niners. So you actually watched both games. I did not see any of the Niners game.
Niners game was awful.
I know that Garoppolo did not have a great game, so going into this week,
The entire offense was shite. Like like seriously, if the Niners offense plays like that the rest of the season, they're not going to make it because it was very terrible, and the defense carried them, which hasn't been the case since Harbaugh was in charge. Like the defense has lacked so much over the last few years that it was like, please, dear God, let the defense finally show up, and they just need to be competent, not dominant. Well, this game they were pretty close to dominant, and the offense was just completely inept. And so it was between them and the Bucs. It was who's gonna outcrap who. Like, I mean, there was never really any good
nobody
play.
really wanted to eat that W.
Yeah, no. Like the Bucs looked just as bad on offense, if not worse than the Niners, and it was just like, dear God, let this game get out of his misery. And sure enough, it ended off of an incomplete play on 4th down for the Bucs in the red zone, and it was just like mercifully, like, thank God this game is over. Like the Niners escaped with a victory.
So the Niners escape week 1. The Bengals come out and exceed expectations in week 1. Now we've got the home opener here in Cincinnati. The Niners have to come across the country.
Because they stayed in Youngstown.
They did stay in Youngstown. That's
so they're
very
staying
true.
on
Yeah,
the Eastern time zone
which
clock.
they do. They always end up doing that.
They
The
do.
DeBartlows are very smart about, all right, we're going to rent out Youngstown State. We're going to practice up here in Youngstown.
It's
for the week.
absolutely smart when they've got multiple games on the road.
Which isn't it funny that this? So the Bengals had to go out west for week 1, but had the advantage of this is week 1. We can get out there early. It's fine. We can adjust.
Right.
And the Niners are like, well, that's all right. Our owners are from Youngstown. We'll just go in
We've
there a
got
week
this.
early
Yeah.
and relax and chill out and get.
And
used
not
to
many
everything.
teams have that, so I mean, it's a luxury that's unheard of, really.
Right,
but
still, there's still some. You're traveling. You're away from home. You're far away from your family,
Sure.
your kids. Your
I mean,
roots.
at the end of the day, it's still an NFL road game,
Right.
Like nobody's
and
discounting
the
that.
Bengals do have a 2.5, but they're favored by 2.5 points coming into this one. So they got the home. Basically, it's a toss up.
Right.
They just get the
It's
home.
it's a pick 'em.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
They just get the home advantage. How do you see this one shaking out? Because my worry is, and Joe brought this up to me here, Mixon's still day to day. So we don't even know if he's going to be able to come out.
But the Niners lost Tevin Coleman, who started the game at running back for them, and their running game looked worse than their passing game, which is not the
Whose running game was worse in week 1, the Bengals or the Niners?
the Bengals, but that's only because they ran it less. Like the Niners tried to run the ball and couldn't. Matt Breida left with an injury
I
and
think
they
the Bengals
struggled.
averaged 2.4 yards a carry.
Yeah.
It was pitiful. It was a pitiful run.
The Niners had Raheem Mostert in there after, Coleman went down. So the Niners offense looked atrocious. I think the difference is that the Seattle defensive front isn't as good as the Niners, which is weird to say because,
That's very strange, especially with Clowney being a
right.
beast.
Well, but it's just they're not the Legion of Boom anymore, and so like that has that perception has still stayed there, but they're not quite there. But the Niners, Nick Bosa, first career game, had 7 pressures and a sack in his first NFL game.
And he's coming back home, quote unquote, to Ohio.
D Ford was as advertised coming over from Kansas City. Like, that front four is legit, and they played well enough that everybody else looked great behind him. And haven't even factored in, Quan Alexander got ejected from that game on the very first series when he hit Jameis Winston on a slide / not slide because it's the NFL and, the targeting role. But, he didn't even play most of the game, and the defense still looked really good. I actually see this as a low-scoring game where both teams kind of do what they do, but neither one is able to get out in front of the other. I'm thinking this is like a 2017 game Niners, or 2017 game Bengals.
You would pick the Niners on this show.
Well,
you
I have
would.
to.
Yeah,
I kind of have to. It's my duty. But yeah, I feel like the Niners have just enough. I will say this: if AJ Green was there, I would be worried. I would think this is probably not going to go the Niners' way. But I think that's the difference, is that they don't necessarily have that go-to on the wide receiver thing where it's like the Niners have just enough secondary.
That's what I'm interested in looking at in this game, because I want to see if John Ross can replicate what he did in week 1. That's going to be the big thing. If John Ross has another game like he did in week 1, I think the Bengals have a legit shot at winning this game.
Absolutely.
If John Ross is John Ross that we know, then the Niners are going to run away with it.
I think that coming into this game, the Niners are looking at John Ross as, oh, okay, he's no longer a pushover. We've got to account for him. So we're not going to let what...
But see,
we'll take away John Ross. Good luck with the rest of it.
So you take away John Ross, you still have Boyd, you still have Eifert, and Dalton is still...
but again, you're not... At this point, you're like, well, let's see if Eifert can beat you. And you know what Boyd can do. Boyd still had 8 catches in this game.
Right.
It wasn't like he was invisible, but... You let Boyd get his. If you shut down Ross, well, then, again, they've just got Boyd.
I'm feeling so much better about this game than I was.
Before
the season,
if you're a Bengals fan, this was a loss, or this was another, well, we hope for a moral victory type game in this one, and it's the home opener, so maybe you can chalk it up. Absolutely, if I was a Bengals fan, I think we can win this game. It's winnable, and I feel much worse as a Niners fan than I did a week ago because of the way they played in Seattle. I'm like, geez. The way the Niners played in Tampa Bay and the way the Bengals played in Seattle, I'm thinking, well, this isn't as much as a gimme game as it was, and the line bears that out. The fact that they're pretty much straight up suggests that this is going to come down to a mistake play on one of the two teams' efforts.
See, that's why I feel like the Bengals end up. I think they win this one, but they don't cover, which is one of those awful situations.
That would be really weird.
In a 2.5
point game, yeah.
They win 21-20.
Right, they won one.
Yeah, just a 1 point.
How funny would that be if they reverse the tables on
I'd
their
be
week 1
totally
loss?
cool with that.
I would not be okay with that. I've only been to one other NFL game in my life, and that was when the Niners came here in 2012. The Niners won. It was a game that set football back 12 decades. I really don't want this game to be like that, but all that matters to me at the end of the day is, because I've been told if they lose, it's my fault. I really need them to come through with this win. I don't care if it's 3-6. I need the Niners to win.
The only thing I'm not looking forward to in this game is all of the coming back from commercial cuts where they're just going to show the Super Bowl highlights from the Bengals and Niners, because that's what they do whenever they play each other. I'm just going to have to watch and relive all of those memories of the Bengals losing the Super Bowl to the Niners.
So you got that spread, but what about a over-under 45?
That is, man, and you even said 2017, so you were right under that.
No.
But, man, 45.
That would mean, no, I don't. That mean 21-24 is what they're thinking, the final score is, right? Then that's close, but I think the way that week 1 went, I'm going more 20. I'm taking the under on that.
I'm going to push it. I'm going to go with that 24-21 score. I'm going to push the line, and in that case, the Bengals do cover, because I think they'll win 24-21. So they cover, and we push the line. That's my go-to on this one. So sorry, Bengals fans. I'm pretty sure I just jinxed us on that pick.
I'm going to take that. Mike picks them to win, and I feel really good about the Niners this week.
Yeah, you should feel so much better than you did
great.
3 minutes ago. Be like, man, this game.
It's in the bag, baby.
All right, good. Well, so looking at the Bengals and the AFC North, the AFC North that's the other good thing about this loss to the Seahawks in Week 1. You really don't lose too much ground. I feel like if the Steelers had beaten the Patriots, that was one that it's like, oh boy, because if the Steelers beat the Patriots, one, that's a good sign for the Steelers that they're back and they're not missing a beat without Antonio Brown. But they looked awful against the Patriots.
Right.
Not able to find pay dirt at all. The Browns obviously have their woes. So the Ravens are the only ones that win in the AFC North in Week 1. And you can even discount that a little bit by being
Because
like,
they
but they
Miami.
played the Dolphins. So
Right.
come on, who really cares about that one? Despite the fact that Lamar Jackson played like not a running back, I feel really good about the AFC North and the fact that everybody struggled except for Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a good spot if you're the Bengals
They
because
struggled
nobody...
the least out of anybody else in the AFC North.
Right, and they didn't fall too far behind anything. I mean, yeah, if you're looking at the fact that Miami came out and blew the doors off everybody else lost.
Well, because
so,
you look at it as, okay, you knew the Ravens were going to win. That was
Right.
that was a win. Everybody thought the Browns were going to win. And then the Steelers and Patriots was like, well,
toss-up.
let's see what happens here. And if
Right.
the Steelers win that one and you're the only team in the division to lose, now it's brutal. And it's only Week 1, but that's a way different feeling than being like, all right, almost everybody lost. We're still in this.
right, and so if you come back out this week and you win, and even if everybody else in the division wins, again, you keep pace. And so that's all you can ask
Right.
for after 2 weeks. Like, the fact that you didn't fall, 2 games behind where you're 0-2 and everybody
Yep.
else has, a win and a loss or whatever. So, they're in a good spot no matter what happens this week.
I'm excited. Let's talk about a team that is not in that great of a spot. That's our beloved Cincinnati Reds.
Oh.
The Reds' magic number right now is 6. As we record
And
this,
what's that magic number for?
that magic number? There you go. Thank you, John. Got it that time around. Good work, man. That magic number is to avoid 90 losses on the year.
Oh, okay.
6 more wins, and the Reds will avoid 90 losses, which I would think that's a big improvement after last season where they lost 93. So big step up this time around. Really not much to talk about in terms of the Reds. The big news over the last week since we last recorded last Wednesday was Michael Lorenzen setting records, becoming the first player since Babe Ruth to play in the field, get a win, and hit a home run in the same game. And then following it up a few days later, hitting a walk-off to win a game. Lorenzen is one of those dudes that it's like, okay, what do we do with him going forward?
Right. He seems to not have a place on the Reds only because he seems like he's a much more valuable piece. He's a Swiss Army knife, right? And in baseball, they're none of those because everybody in baseball is so specialized, so locked into what they do. He seems like he'd be so more valuable on a team that was going somewhere. I have zero clue how the Reds move forward with him because no matter what, it feels like they're wasting his talents.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, do you let him pitch where, he's going to get some at-bats and, but you're coming in and he's coming in relief. It's not like he's a starter where he's going to get
Right.
multiple at-bats in a game. He's coming in relief, so maybe he gets an at-bat, maybe not. Do you bring him in as a pinch hitter? Do you bring him in as a substitute, outfielder? How do you utilize this guy going forward?
And the biggest thing is that this is his last year technically under contract.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that.
Next year, he's in his arbitration year 3 and the year 2021 arbitration year 4. And you're talking about he's 27 now. He's only making a little less than $2 million. You're either going to lose him or you got to sign him. Are you going to sign him and...
Well, how much is he worth, too? Because, there's all of these anomalies, but
That's the hard
they're very
part.
specialized. I have no idea what you pay him and say, yeah, that's
Okay, so Lorenzen is
fair.
not going to be a starting pitcher. You can't put him in the rotation, especially with what the
No.
Reds have for the rotation going into next year. So
right.
at
The
best-
rotation is the strongest
Right.
part of their team.
So at best, he's a bullpen player. I'm sorry, on the pitching side, at best, he's a bullpen player. Or do you sign him with the intent of listen, man, we're going to put you in the outfield. You're going to be, but even then, he's not a starter. You don't put he's not going to start in the outfield with what you got out there.
I don't know, man. It's tough.
Because you still have Senzel, which they could move to the infield. That's a possibility that they've
Third
been kicking
baseman
around.
by trade and second base tried out. Yeah.
Right, but he's been getting time in the outfield. You got Phillip Ervin out there. You got Van Meter. Like, where does Lorenzen fit in that outfield in an already crowded outfield?
I don't know, but I feel like you can't afford to lose him. I don't know what.
Right, he's
like I don't,
that guy.
Yeah,
that it's
I
like,
don't know what you pay him.
I don't know what we do with him,
but we've got to keep him.
Yeah, we got to get him signed somehow.
And it's tough because again, you're building for the future, and like how big of a piece is he of that future? Because by the time the Reds are supposed to be good, like will he even be around?
Is he the piece to build around on the Reds right now? Him and Senzel, and
no,
is he the starter you keep and a bat like Senzel and around?
I mean, it's hard
to look. I think Castillo is still the one you build around when you're talking about pitching.
Yeah,
but
it's hard to build around a bullpen piece.
Like if you're looking at a third guy though, where you're just like somebody who could do everything. Like I definitely think he's in the conversation of one that you want on your team. Like these guys are invaluable,
right?
So then you're paying him. You're paying him this summer.
I think you're paying him to a certain extent.
Otherwise, you're going into arbitration for next year. I mean, and he's going to make about $2.
I would say you pay him just because you don't want it to get to arbitration where they overvalue it, and you just like you see if you can get some type of
or
discount.
you lose him, and you get nothing from him. You know.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in because at 27 again. He's in the prime of his career, so ideally he'd be playing on a team that was contending for something.
He's so streaky, though, on the mound. That's what kills me.
Yeah.
Is there will be games where it's like Lorenzen's coming in, here we go, and he either is lights out, strikes out the side, looks like just a baller, or he comes in and gives up 3 runs, and it's like, dude, what just happened? I feel like him and Amir Garrett are two guys that when one is good, the other is awful. If we could get Lorenzen and Garrett to be good together, and they just bail each other out, which is fine, but if we could get both of those two to be good at the same time, oh my God, that bullpen would be stacked. So you get if those two are locked in, plus the rotation that they have coming in next year. In that case, Joe, I talked myself into it. I'm signing Lorenzen. I'm paying him the money. I'm keeping him in my bullpen and allowing him to come in and make these. But I would use him more in the field.
Well, and I was gonna say, I was like, I'd pay him what he's worth, but I would start utilizing him more.
That's the thing. They're not doing it enough.
So you're taking the Shohei Ohtani approach with the Angels, where if he's not pitching, he's playing the field, or. I mean, like when
every day he's coming in doing something.
When baseball gets to everybody the universal DH, you can have him DH.
Jesus, dude, you got to go there with it.
No, well, he's not a DH. He's not a DH. I wouldn't put Lorenzen.
But that's the thing.
DH.
Even if he's not, though, I legitimately make it like little league and high school baseball, where he's playing every day, one way or the other. Whether you put him in as a defensive replacement and he gets an at bat, he comes as in a reliever, you start him, like whatever it is. The dude is the Swiss Army knife of your team.
You know what's amazing, too, about that we haven't really seen utilized a lot this year, but you can make a pitching change with a guy in the field.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't seen Bell do it yet, but that's, I think, how you use Lorenzen more effectively going into next season. You bring him in, you let him pitch, you put him to the outfield, and then you bring him back onto the mound. Oh,
well, I think, again, that's
where it's solid.
That's a strategy more used by a team that's in contention and like doing a lot of things. Like you're not worrying about juggling.
Joe had the biggest American League fan reaction I've ever seen to that.
No, it's just I'm thinking about his arm. You're gonna let his arm cool down for like an inning or two and not move at all, and then you're gonna ask him to come back and throw 90.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
After throwing 90, then I'm going to stop and not do it for like a half hour because that's how long an inning takes. And then you're going to ask him to do it a half hour later?
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
that's exactly how
are what they are.
Let's not blow up my idea just yet, Joe. I think that sounded very cool. That was a good sound bite, so let's not shoot it down.
I mean, if you bring him in, let's say, top 7, he goes through a couple batters, moving his arm, and then let's say he goes to the first batter, than the whole, oh, I don't like that righty-righty matchup. And you throw him out on the field and then you bring him back in the bottom and he keeps his arm warm. I'm like, you can do maybe a pitcher in between.
Well, and that's more what I'm thinking. You have Lorenzen come in, face a batter, head out to left field, bring in a matchup that suits better, and then knock Garrett out and bring Lorenzen back in. You're not burning an additional arm in the bullpen.
I mean, there's a lot that you have to factor into it, but I figure if you pay him, you get this is one of those ones where you're like, all right, we're going to get every last dollar out of him.
Exactly. You guys.
So we're all in agree. Pay him. Pay the man.
Pay him.
Pay the man.
I think you
Pay him.
have
Don't
to.
pay him. Don't pay him.
Yeah.
Pay him.
Pay
him. Pay him. Yeah.
Because I don't think
Unanimous.
I don't think it's like a hindrance enough to not pay him. Like you keep him because you can still keep him at a reasonable
And
deal.
even if what stats are you basing his payment on? Like that's
Exactly.
the other thing that you have in your advantage is he's still a bullpen arm
which
or
is why,
a replacement player. So
which is why
you're going to
milk
get good
it for
value.
all it's worth. Like even if you say, all right, he maxed out at $9 million a year. Well, guess what? You're doing so much more than any other $9 million bullpen arm is. Then
So
you get your
right now
money's worth.
you're as the Reds, you're in a good spot because just think about how the Saints were with like Jimmy Graham, where Jimmy Graham was like, pay me like a wide receiver. I'm a wide receiver, but he's a tight end. And you can like set his pay schedule right now to where it's like either I'm going to pay you as a relief pitcher, starting pitcher, whatever.
Or my backup left
Right.
fielder.
And then I was gonna say, and then no matter what, you're using them as all of them.
Right, exactly. You still get that benefit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, magic number 6, as we're recording this may change by the time the show comes out. But we just need to get to 6, Reds fans, and then all is right with the world. We take over next year. That's where we're at. We get to less than 90 losses.
Less than 90 losses.
Biggest question. Votto on the team next year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody.
Why?
Because nobody's going to take the contract.
He's not going anywhere.
Nobody. Yeah. And Reds.
It's literally by default.
Is he getting replaced super quick though?
No. I think there's too much money
I think
tied up in
I
him.
think there will come a time, and I don't know how much time he has left on his contract. There will come a time when he's shipped off at the trading deadline because he's at the end of his deal. But like, as long as he has time on that contract, full years, like he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and not only that, Cincinnati has such a problem with loving their players. Yeah, Joe's just seeing what this
Till
contract
2024.
Right, when he signed that
he's
deal,
not going anywhere.
When Joey
$20
Votto-
million till 2024.
Yeah,
when
he's
Joey
not going
Votto
anywhere.
signed that contract, it was Joey Votto is retiring a Red.
Right.
That was him cementing his place as I will be on this team forever until I decide I'm done.
Does
with
he
the game.
just retire?
No.
Do you think he's done?
No,
No,
absolutely
no.
not. He's got that sweet check swing.
He'll play out this
warrant.
contract for sure.
Right? Why wouldn't you? I'm not going to give up $20 million a year if I could just
Look
go
at,
up there. And,
Look at Pujols. Pujols is still up there chugging because, like, why? Because he gets paid. Like that'll be Votto. He'll just be up there every day.
Restructured be Bonnie Bonilla. And then the Reds are just on the Bonnie Bonilla hook.
Oh, if the Reds become the new Mets, that'd
Joey
be a sad
Votto
part.
Day. Oh, that does not sound fun to me. All right, let's get into some college football before we close out the show here. Let's talk some UC and that. Ooh. Whew. Rough week for the Bearcats as they went into Ohio State.
Was it though? I mean, they
Yes.
played close early on.
No.
It was 0-0 at one point.
It was 0-0, and then there was a kickoff, and then it went
Then
all
it went
downhill
down.
from there. I did tweet out at one point, I was like, 28-0 UC fans. This is where Ohio State takes their foot off the gas. You got them right where you want them.
I do remember saying that.
They did not take their foot off the gas. Ohio State did what Ohio State does. Even the odds makers didn't see this one. UC only a 16-point underdog going into the game, getting run out of the stadium. Just an absolutely ugly performance all around from the Bearcats. I don't even think we should spend time on this one. Like it happened. It was not what we expected. We thought it was going to be closer. We thought UC was going to show something in this game, and they didn't show anything. So this is one of those where Fickle's like, okay, you played in Columbus, moving on to Miami. We're on to Miami.
Right.
He goes with his Bill Belichick. We're on to Miami.
I mean, if anything, this would more be the one for Ohio State fans. They're still wondering what they have in Justin Fields
Yeah.
at quarterback.
Right.
Still, nobody knows exactly what, because he's an enigma through 2 games where it's just like, can he run? Can he pass? Like, he can do both, but not really great on either side. Like, they won both games, but it wasn't necessarily because of him. I mean, if you're an Ohio State fan, I would just be worried about how the season's going to play out, because in the biggest games where he has to be the man, can he be?
I don't know. I mean, he doesn't seem like he matches up with some of the other big name quarterbacks that are out there currently.
Well, I just think just even recent Ohio State quarterbacks, you're like, all right, I don't feel as good as I did with Miller. I don't feel as good as I did with what's his name last year? Not just before
Barrett.
Yes, Barrett. That's what I was thinking of. Like those guys, even though you were like, all right, then they're not necessarily going to be NFL guys. Like, they were very solid at the OSU level. Like, he hasn't quite hit that mark yet, and I'm like, if I'm an OSU fan, I'm like, a little nervous on how this is all going to play out, because they've got the 6th ranked in the country, but are they really the 6th team? Because you go as your quarterback goes, and so...
Well, I hope they lose, quick. But moving on to the Bearcats in Miami, everybody picking the Bearcats to win this one. It's a heavy favorite.
Even you?
I did pick it on our show. I picked that for our Degenerate Dartboard of Doom.
Which I think was egregious.
Bearcats 17.5 point
17?
favorites against
That's
Miami.
so many points.
Okay, but Miami
They're
played-
at Miami, right? Or Miami
no,
coming
it's
here?
I believe it's at Nippert.
Might be something here, okay.
I could be wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure it's at
It would
Nippert.
make sense, because Miami was UC was home for
Right.
week 1 and away last week, so
Right.
they should be home. But even still, that's a huge spread.
Miami, okay, so they've played Iowa and got beat 38-14, and then they played Tennessee Tech and ran it up 48-17. But looking at that, it's like, okay, you allowed 17 points to Tennessee Tech.
I didn't even know
think-
Tennessee Tech was a school until
Right.
you just said it.
And UC is a little bit more battle tested. Granted, UCLA is not a great team, but I would put UCLA and Ohio State way above Iowa and Tennessee Tech. Like,
True.
UC is definitely more battle tested, more ready for this game.
I'll give you that.
So I just feel like they are.
It's just a lot of points.
It is a lot of points, but it's also college football. It's not like the NFL where 17.5 points
Sure.
is like egregious. It's that happens a lot, and I do think that this is a game.
I just
that
think
UC
the
can come out.
rivalry game, I wouldn't trust it. That's all. Like, I definitely think that UC will win, but asking them to win by more than 17 points is a lofty goal.
Mark it down. The Mike Burlon lock number 2 of the week. We got the Bengals winning 24-21, and you got UC winning. I'm going to give this one, you know what? I'm going to say 21-0. I'm going to say they blank Miami.
You're not only saying that they beat
Mark
them by
it down.
17, you're saying they pitch a shutout.
Mark it down.
I'm literally willing to bet that both of those things don't happen. The shutout or the spread. Like, I don't know what. Like, we got to make just a little personal side bet here that neither of those things are going to happen.
Well, let's put a bet on the Bengals
All right.
49ers. Since it is both our teams, we'll do some type of bet, maybe like a hypno bet
Fine.
for next week. Loser has to do a shot of hypno.
For
before
just Bengals Niners?
Yeah, for Bengals Niners.
But I mean, then I want to counter that with the with the
No,
Bearcats.
you let
Miami.
me take this crazy stance. This is my crazy hot take for the week.
It's insane.
21-0.
All right.
Joe, am I crazy for thinking that this is going to happen?
The house music's playing you off. So
All right,
there you
fair
know where it
enough.
stands.
Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to week 2 of Craft Brewed Sports Cincinnati
So
Style.
much fun, man.
It is a lot of fun.
Good
I really
times.
like being able to hone in on our city and
Right.
talk about our sports. So if you guys also like us talking about this, be sure to share it out with your Cincinnati friends. Even those who don't follow Cincinnati sports are probably going to enjoy this, right?
And subscribe, rate, and review.
You're darn right, Joe. Thank you for that.
And when you're not listening to this show, make sure you tune in to Craft Brewed Sports.
Yes, we have 2 episodes basically coming out every week. Subscribe to the podcast and get both of those episodes every single week. In between, follow us on Twitter at Craft B Sports. You can follow me at Mike Burlon. You can follow Scott at ScottyK_Jr. Follow Joe at JoeGoalie4. If you have any crazy hot Cincinnati takes, leave them on our drunk line, 440-37-DRUNK. Leave a voicemail, send us a text message, whatever. Thank you guys so much for listening, for tuning in. Cheers, everybody.
We out. Peace.